evening, fellow Toastmasters and guests that we have here this evening. As you know, I'm Sharon Yardley, and how to change the world. I bet you're all thinking, wow, that's a big one for her to live up to. So I will try and do it with finesse as much as possible. Did anybody see the Manchester Love concert a couple of weeks ago, following the bombings? Did you? It was really interesting, wasn't it? Really kind of made you feel like everyone's coming together. And then, of course, today, the horrendous fire that we've got in London. I mean, again, it just seems like sometimes you just feel like so overwhelmed and like, what can I do to help change the world for the better? Because it all seems so big, and I feel personally just so very helpless. Because usually we go about our business, we're all very busy. Right now we're kind of stuck in this selfish age where everyone's just concentrating on themselves and it's all about me, and rather than being outward looking, we're more of an in-looking group, not group, but world right now. I think part of that is because people feel so powerless to change the world, so they tend to give up and not do anything. So, what can we do to change the world? I mean, ideally we'd all like to make some kind of big, major contribution, but as it says, we feel powerless and helpless. But there is one thing that we can do to change the world, and that is be kind. As I mentioned, we all tend to get stuck in our selfish little world and worrying about our own problems, which, considering some of the events recently, our little trials and tribulations are absolutely nothing in comparison. But to us, that's part of our world and that's what we focus on. But, as it says, being kind to anyone or everyone is one of the ways we can start changing the world. So why should we be kind? You know, I've gone to work, I've got all kinds of pressures on me. Why should I just take a moment or two out of my day to be kind? I need to get on with my life. Well, some of the benefits of kindness are they make us happier. They give us that warm feeling. Who has did an act of kindness for someone and you get that kind of glow inside you? You're tapping in to who you really are and you're proud of yourself. Kindness is good for the heart. It gives us emotional warmth. There's a chemical called oxytocin, which we release in our body when we get that warm, uplifted feeling after doing something or seeing something beautiful. And that puts chemicals in our body, which is very good for our heart. Kindness slows down aging. We all want that, don't we? No, I do. And kindness improves relationships. It reduces the emotional distance between ourselves and other people. It helps us to bond. And there's so many small acts of kindness you can do. Everything from just opening the door for somebody right through to some of the acts we saw recently. People taking strangers into their home in a crisis, or bringing food and clothing out onto the street for victims of the fire today. And everything in between. And I'm sure we've all experienced kindness from other people. Kindness has a ripple effect. If you tend to do something nice for someone, chances are it puts them in a good mood and they will do something for someone else because they're left feeling good, so they do it for somebody else. And that's how the ripple effects, it kind of goes out. And then that person will do something else for someone else, etc. So that is how it can spread so easily. So one little act of kindness can have a big effect. And you may not even meet some of the people who it ends up affecting. So just bear that in mind. We're wired for kindness. The more people we act kindly to, as I said, the more it will ripple out. And it's good to know that our acts of kindness don't just affect the people we actually do it for, but can ripple out and affect all kinds of other people as well. So, one person cannot change the world, but they can change the world of one person, just by simple acts. No act of kindness is ever wasted. And as Gandhi said, be the change you want to be in the world. Thank you.
Wonderful speech there by Sharon. Given us a lot to think about, especially in recent times as well, so thank you for that. If I can please ask Olga to come back up.
Just 2 minutes first.
Right. Sorry, Olga. Just checking. You okay? Okay. Sorry about that. Right. If we could first start with, if we take the ballot sheets, well after that actually, sorry, before that, if we can have groups just with the people next to you, we can have 1 minute just to discuss the speech, giving each other your thoughts. So something you liked about the speech, something you'd like to see more of, and something you really liked. So have a quick discussion amongst you. Mona, if we could just have 1 minute on the clock. Cheers.
Starting now.
Just 1 minute, please. Thank you.
It's really nice that something pushed a little bit before she came
You can now just take another minute to fill in the top of the evaluation sheet under the first speaker's name. So just your thoughts, and we'll give that to each speaker in the break. So if you take another minute now, please, on the clock, just to fill those out.
Yeah, I mean, she couldn't do it, so that was why. So
You have it in your head. Yeah, that's what you mean. Then you're thinking is that.
she could have been done more
Yes.
in front.
And she was getting a bit like that towards the end.
Yeah.
Okay, now that we fill those in, if I can please ask the evaluator to come back up. Olga, if you please come up and give your evaluation. Thank you.
change the world. Really difficult to think about what you need to do. But Sharon gave us a recipe. But prior to go to the subject of her speech, I would like to discuss, to evaluate technicality of technical side of her speech. The prime object, purpose of the speech was to develop your skills to organize speech properly. And if we will go, if we will start from the beginning, introduction or opening of speech must draw immediate attention of audience. We can say yes, it would immediately, because we were puzzled by the title of speech, and when Sharon started, and immediately we put our attention to her speech. We prepare ourselves to listen. It means that it was achieved, this purpose. Then was smooth transition to the body of speech. And finally, after introduction, we learn that the main recipe for changing the world. And transition was, after one statement to another, are logically connected. It was the same, what she did, she chose this key word, kindness, and then she played with this word in different, she connected this word with emotional distance. The more kindness, the less emotional distance. It's from one side, the more between people, the more kindness, the more oxytocin. And it means that you feel good, and probably endorphins as well, you feel even more better. and you don't want to slip away the problem of other people's. And after this beautiful conclusion with practical advice, what to do. Of course, she is very pragmatic and realistic person, and she understood that one person it's very difficult to change the world, but kindness can change the world of one, and accumulation of these changes will lead us to absolutely change wonderful world, without war, without trouble, without, if it will be disaster or be natural, not human made. The only, what I can say as recommendation, probably vocal variety will make the speech more exciting. It was enjoyable, interesting, but a little more pathos, a little more, how to say, not declaration, but a little more emotions to this. Because it was a little flatness. You need to put more emotion. Fire, to say about this world with fire, but not to build. Control fire. It's a material. Visual, maybe something interesting picture to put on background. You understand? Because we need something positive images. And it really will enrich your speech. But and make your speech even more famous, or it means it's famous.
Yes.
It will be sound more not famous. What is, you need to help me how to use this word famous with famous, yes?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Olga. It's now time for our second speaker. Now, this person needs no introduction. She's full of energy, great personality, and a great speaker. But before we have Alison up, if I could please invite her evaluator, Mark, to please explain what you're looking for in this particular speech, and what to the front, please, Mark. Thank you.
Let's reduce crime.
And if you could also introduce Alison as well, please, that'd be great. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Alison is going to be carrying out speech number 9 from the Competent Communicator Manual, which is Persuade with Power. And that is a hugely valuable skill for any speaker. But like any of the speeches and the things you learn in the manual, there are some real tricks to doing this well. So what I'm going to be looking for today is for Alison to persuade listeners to adopt her viewpoint or ideas, or to take some action, to appeal to the audience's interests, and to use logic and emotion to support her position. But most of all, I'm looking for finesse. And that's something Alison's got back to. So if I can please invite Alison up, let's all reduce crime.
A little bit of setting up here. We've got a... Can everybody see this all right? You're going to be... Do you want to take a chair, Jimmy?
I'll stand.
She's going to stand. There's your calculator. All right. There's a black pen which should work. If it doesn't, I've got another one. All right. So Janine's going to do a little bit of work for me as we move through this. It's the second half of the speech, so she's just going to stand there and look like a wit for a moment. Okay. Bear with me. I'm sorry, Doug, but we're losing your word just for a minute. Very careful picking up the leg turn, because... Now, is that all right? 4 seconds. Okay. Good evening, members, most welcome guests, and everybody else that's here in the room. You may be aware that crime in the large cities is increasing. Crime throughout the world is decreasing, but crime in cities is increasing. And please forgive me because I need to read this to you, but here are some things that I've picked up through the Echo and from various sites relating to crime that I found on the internet. Jack Gudge, a 17-year-old local boy, died after a fight outside Tesco Express in Winton on Saturday the 16th of July 2016. Robert Hines was sentenced to life in prison for the assault and murder of his 3-month-old son in Bournemouth on the 4th of May 2017. Guy Hedger, 61, was shot dead during a burglary in Ringwood and was fatally injured in front of his partner in the early hours of Sunday morning, the 2nd of May 2017. Last year, Hayley Dean, 38, was found in a flat in Derby Road. She had sustained serious head injury and was pronounced dead on the scene. This is all in safe little old Bournemouth. The Dorset police have 12 unsolved murders. There are over 1,000 unsolved murders in the UK, and there are 500 murders and 33,000 rapes occurred in 2015. Now, wouldn't it be nice to try and reduce those figures and have a safer world with less crime? An experiment took place in Washington between the 7th and the 30th of July 1993, a while ago. Between 800 and 4,000 transcendental Shalins decided that they were going to meditate round the clock in Washington over that period of some 3 weeks. And during that time, the crime in Washington dropped by 23%. This is documented information. You can pick it up anytime you like. The mayor of Washington said the only way that crime was going to reduce by 20% was if there was 20 inches of snow. So this was a really, really remarkable thing that these people did. Pretty impressive, wouldn't you say? Mm-hmm. So, actually, there are easier ways to do this than to meditate for 3 weeks round the clock. And I'm hoping that you're all going to help me to do this. Are you going to help me to do this? Yes, lovely. So could I ask you all, first of all, to stand up? And Janine, we need to do a head count of everybody who's standing up. So, we'll assume that you're standing up, Sophie. 9, 10, 11, 12. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 20 people. Okay, all right? Now, the great thing is that the more we can do within this exercise, it compounds, it actually squares, and Janine's going to do the numbers. So we've already got 20. So the next thing I would like you to do is the people on that side of the room put their left foot forward. Just put their left foot forward gently. And the people on this side of the room put their right foot forward. Okay? All right? So, has everybody on this side of the room done that? Everybody this side? So we can... Yeah, she's already done it. Bigger letters, Janine. Come on, across the board. 400. Okay, are you comfortable with that? The next thing that we can do is take our hands and... point your fingers forward, your 3 fingers back and your thumbs out. It's a kind of a ballet pose, yes? Okay, everybody happy? We can square it again, Janine. All right? Lovely. Now with those hands, we can then take it down into an open gesture. Square it again, my accountant. All right? And as we do that, she's still going. Give her a minute. This is getting high. Can you see the numbers? I'll read it out. 8. Okay, so that is 25,600 million. Hey man, we're getting there! All right, and now what we need to do also is go right. So now what I would like you all to do, you with your left feet, you with your right feet, is to do the whole thing. Wait a moment. So you're going to put your foot forward, you're going to get your hands in a nice position, pull them out and go shh. Are you ready? We're going to go 1, 2, 3, go. 1, 2, 3, go. Wow, wasn't that amazing? And look how many points we've made for the universe. Thank you very much. Give yourselves up. Please do sit there. She's still going at it. She's still going. She's given up. It's an awful lot. Ladies and gentlemen, members, visitors, that of course was a whole load of baloney, was it not? But it maybe made you think about a few things. Now, just think about our regular and ordinary lives. We've already had Sharon talking about this. And possibly there are small things in our lives that we could do that would actually reduce stress, anxiety, and those sort of intensities. So it might be that somebody shouts at you and you actually want to shout back, but instead of doing that, maybe you let it go by you and you calm the situation down. You're driving down the road and somebody does something really stupid and you go, and you've got a bit of road rage. It's only driving down the road. Perhaps we can calm down a little bit and just make life a little bit quieter, a little bit gentler, and hopefully that, as Sharon said earlier, will ripple out and reduce some of the crime within our vicinity. Do you think you could try and do that?
Yeah.
Everybody who thinks that they could try and do that, would you like to give yourselves a round of applause?
Another thoughtful speech, giving us a lot to think about. Some powerful speeches today, isn't there? Absolutely. Right, what I'd like to do now is have another minute on the clock for everyone to just discuss again in your groups, feedback, your thoughts on how that speech went for you. So 1 more minute, please. Sharon, thank you.
Would you like to
Everything about this is from the end. This was the introduction, the role play, the main short share history of the yes, as well as the numbers and other than that,
It's not to be that's not so I do think that she should reset the time online. So she should reduce the participation of the it is one way you get persuade the audience. So she did. That was good. That makes sense.
Thank you very much, Rose. If you can now take your ballot sheets or evaluation slips and fill the next one down, just give your feedback to the speaker that you can give to them in the break. Thank you. 1 more minute, please. Rose.
yeah, very good.
Thank you very much again, Roland. Which now brings us on to our third speaker. Now this speaker, this is going to be their icebreaker.
Oh, Mark. Evaluation.
Before all that, we're going to reverse, we're going to go back to Mark, because he's prepared there for ages, and I'm like, Mark, and I apologise for that, Mark. Sorry, can we first welcome Mark up to do his valuation?
Thank you very much. Well, did Alison persuade with power? What I loved about Alison's speaking tonight was her energy. If I said one thing that really stood out to me, it was the energy that she brought to the room with her speaking. Fantastic. It really makes you sit up and listen. That's the one thing, you know, if I could try and imitate one thing, it would be to try and draw some of that energy and use it myself. So that was the real standout for me. Just going through how the speech worked, I felt at the start, because you started speaking to the audience as you were setting up, you lost a bit of the impact you could have at the start. I know that the timer is supposed to start when you start speaking. So you were sort of talking and saying, we're just going to set up over here and do that. And I felt that it lacked a bit of impact. You then brought the lectern over, you were quiet while you did that, and then you stopped. I went, good evening. And instantly that was the impact. And that I felt that should have been the start of the speech in terms of, if you really want to get people to go, okay, what's going on? So I think that's where the gravitas came. Very clear in terms of what Alison wanted. She talked about crime in big cities is increasing, and she was clear about saying, wouldn't it be good if we could have a safer world with no crime? So okay, I was clear what the speech was all about. She then went through a number of statistics, and I felt again, given the amount of energy that Alison brought to the latter part of her speech, I felt there it really dipped down. It became a sort of reading list, and that, if you like, was a good counterbalance to the energy later on. But at the time, it felt a little bit flat. I didn't know what was to come, the whirlwind that was to come. So perhaps if you're going to be reading out statistics, possibly having pauses between each one, just to give people a thought. Okay, what does that actually mean, that number, so they can actually internalise it and make it mean something to them. Otherwise, it would just become wash of statistics, and it'd be like, here's one, here's another, you don't really take it in. So that might have helped in terms of, again, allowing people to understand what you're saying. Much more pizzazz. You put the sheet of paper down and started talking about this 23% reduction in crime in Washington, and instantly the energy was in the room. And I was like, wow, this is it. This is where the pizzazz is, and very alive. And I've remembered that percentage. Audience participation, always fantastic. If you want to engage your audience, get them up. That's really good. So I think she handled that really well. Really controlled the audience, brought them along, brought you all along with her. Are you okay with this? Very clear instructions. So I thought all that worked really well. Great repartee with Janine in terms of saying, come on Janine, bigger letters, this sort of thing. So that was funny. So I thought that worked well. And just energy throughout. Hey man, we're getting there, this sort of thing. Good pace, good vocal variety, use of volume, use of the stage. I loved the humour throughout. What a load of baloney. Great humour, sort of turned it all on its head, because we were all going, what the hell are you doing with this? And it was all a load of baloney, which ended up with the message at the end, when you're feeling angry, can you calm down? And she did it as a call to action. Is it something you're going to do? And got a response from you, which was yes. Is that not persuading with power? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mark. Great evaluation there. Well done. Now it brings us on to our third speaker. This speaker is doing their icebreaker. So it's their first speech from the Toastmasters manual, so we're going to get to know this speaker a lot more. It's hard to believe that this is his first speech, so I realised that you have actually done this role as Toastmaster before, which I apologise for saying this, it does show a bit of finesse, and sorry, sorry. So I'm looking forward to this speech very much. But before we get Robert up, if I could please invite their evaluator up, Dee. Dee, if you could please come up and just introduce the speaker.
Good evening everyone, my name is Dee and I'm going to be the evaluator for Robert's speech. I have to say I'm really looking forward to it because, as Raj just said, I've heard you speaking before and you speak so wonderfully and so with such finesse and in an extremely articulate fashion. However, with this speech, the objective of the speech is to get to know Robert perhaps in a different way, perhaps in a more personal way, and I'm really looking forward to that. So really, by the end of the speech, if the objectives have been met, we will know a little bit more about Robert, and then he will have this delivered the speech, and perhaps he has honed some of the skills, which I know he has already. The speech which he is going to deliver this evening is called A Game of Dreams.
A game. My bad. I'm sorry. A game. There's no game.
Sorry?
A game of dreams.
Oh, I thought it was a play on a word.
Typo.
Because it says GAM, and I thought perhaps that's a play on a word, so fine. Please forgive me. It's obviously a misprint, and I thought it was a game. Okay. A game of dreams, that's more like it. Okay, a game of dreams. All right, so I look forward to hearing that. So I want to introduce Robert.
Fellow Toastmasters, honoured guests, I plan to take over the world.
Good idea.
Or at least I did. Back when I was young, I had pretty grand ambitions. I've always felt that I had a pretty big imagination. I was first clued into this particular fact when my father gave me my first computer. It was a Commodore VIC-20, and it was old even when I was young. The cream-coloured plastic had gone a sickly yellow. It had a tape deck that barely worked. But it was on this decrepit device that I first unlocked my imagination. My dad used to collect computer magazines. In each issue, it would give you a little snippet of code to put together your own game. It was basic, but my dad showed me what he'd made and imparted a little bit of that knowledge. And that was enough. I was filled with wonder. I was amazed at the possibilities, the different permutations, what I could create. It could be light or dark, it could go up or down, it could be fast, it could be slow. Even life and death, they're just toys for you to play with in any way you can conceive. It was at this point I knew what I wanted to do for a career. I wanted to make games of all shapes and sizes. I wanted to express myself with finesse on the grandest scales imaginable. I wanted to create mountains and lakes. I wanted to form continents and seas. I wanted to use worlds as my colouring books. I even wanted to write the rules for my own reality. These grand aspirations, they drove me obstinately, doggedly, towards a singular goal. I chose my A-levels based on these decisions. I chose my degrees. And when I graduated university with a master's degree in software engineering, I went straight into a games programming position. It was in this first games job that I first realised that while I wanted to write the rules of a new reality, it was in fact the rules of my own reality that were starting to get in my way. When you have a vision of a game, it will be compromised by the time it reaches the final product. Even the most wonderful activity, the most pleasurable activities, can become a bit of a chore, a bit of a negative when you introduce things like deadlines, when you introduce things like budget constraints, and the dreaded executive decisions. Your dreams get downsized, they get shredded along the way, they get morphed and changed. They die a death of 1,000 cuts. Unfortunately, that is the reality of the wide world of work. Or is it? I learnt fairly early on that there is another way. There is a way that you can actually have your dreams manifest. There's a way that you can actually get your vision into the world. And the trick is to be your own boss. If you're the one leading the charge, you can even get other people to come in behind you. You can get them to help you make your vision. I knew this was the path I wanted to walk down. But for me, I knew that wasn't going to be an easy one. Because I'm a bit of an introvert by nature. Normally I seclude myself away. I'm not that keen on social gatherings, to be honest. And to compound this awkward starting position, I also suffer a lot from performance anxiety. No matter what activity I do, I always perceive the judgment of my peers to be raining down upon me. People judging every minuscule activity that I do. So to try and counter this, to try and get past it, if I want to realise my dream of leadership, I'm going to have to do something about this anxiety. I realised there might be a solution. If I can make these events, these places where I feel this anxiety, if I can make them normal, if I can make them everyday occurrences, make them very uninteresting, then maybe I can keep this anxiety at bay. If I were to give a room full of attentive people speeches, then perhaps I can start to wear down this anxiety. That's one of the reasons I've come to Toastmasters, to face my fears, to stare them down. I am going to take this overwhelming anxiety and I'm going to grind it down, little by little, one speech at a time. I will make it die a death of 1,000 speeches. I will make it normal. I will make it ordinary, regular. I will make it nothing. And who knows, if I do gain a little bit of confidence along the way, if I become a little more outgoing, well, maybe I will take over the world. Thank you.
Preacher.
Yeah. Wow. Speech number 1, really? That's like speech number 10. That was fantastic, wasn't it?
It was so good.
Unbelievable. Don't even know where to go from there. We're going to try something a little different now. So, as I mentioned to you, evaluations are extremely important to give feedback and help us all progress in Toastmasters. So what I'd like you to do is if you can get into pairs and label yourself A and B. Please, just the person next to you makes it a lot easier. You can do that.
Yeah. A and B. Ladies.
So not got in pair, please. Everyone alright?
How long?
So what are we doing?
We should label
Tony and Jeremy maybe go together?
Yeah.
You guys alright? No, unless you sorted, that's fine. Okay? Brilliant. Okay, so A's. Label yourself A and B. A's, you are going to evaluate the speech first. And you're just doing it to your partner. That's it. Okay?
1 minute?
1 minute to evaluate the speech. But before you do that, B's afterwards, B's are going to give feedback to A's on how their evaluation went. Does that make sense?
I love it.
You knew it, did you? You knew it.
So, 1 minute for A's to do their evaluation to B's.
Sorry, for an evaluation. Okay.
Information about you. You told us how you apologized to what you did
Saying that it was
1 minute plus you're done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, B's, give feedback if you can to A's on how their evaluation went. Best feedback you can in terms of giving them something that you liked about their feedback, something you liked about, something they could improve on their feedback as well, on their evaluations. Okay, man, 1 minute, please.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to have a couple of minutes to go back to the usual process of filling in the discussion sheets, the evaluation slips. So now a couple of minutes to fill those in place, that'd be great. Thank you. The speaker number 3.
What did they say? Okay, 1 minute on the clock. I think to write this thing. Stay fine.
I think I'm going to forget mine.
You're right.
Sorry, baby.
Remember, we can give those evaluation slips to the speakers in the break. It's just easier for them to take home with them. We'll now go back to the evaluator. If we can please invite Dee up to do the evaluation. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, what can I say? The first word I think of is wow. Wow. Would you all agree with that?
Yes.
It really, it sort of bowled me over, really. I can't think of enough words to describe it. The words that come to mind are charismatic, strong, powerful, ambitious, energetic, passionate, authentic. Authentic. I think that's it is a kind of buzzword at the moment. I think it is it's very true, because it started off, you delivered it in a chronological fashion, but as well as delivered in a chronological fashion, it wasn't, sometimes when you do something chronologically in that fashion, it can be a bit kind of boring, but it wasn't at all. It was chronological, but yet it was attention grabbing. I love the way it started off when you said you wanted to take over the world. So one of the things when I'm asked in my booklet is, how did it begin? And it was like, wow, I want to rule the world, I want to take over the world. And as it happened, it is a subject close to my heart, as it happens. And I believe that is possible. I believe we can do it, and that really resonated with me, truly resonated with me. And I could feel the passion with everybody here. It really it made us all sit up. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
We absolutely sat up and listened to it. I love the way you came and you said about the reality. And as we all know, we do create our own reality. And you sort of would get the impression you were beginning to understand that reality. And that the reality you have, I believe that it is absolutely possible. And I believe that will absolutely happen. You say you want to take over the world? Why not? You can take over the world. I still can't believe this is your first speech. I really can't believe this is your first speech. I think it is just so amazing. The things that I would say, possibly, if you'd paused it, you were so animated, which is brilliant, absolutely fantastic, but perhaps you'd paused a little bit more, and perhaps a little bit more eye contact with everyone, and seeing the impact that it had, because it was having a really fantastic impact. And I think even I could see the visitors were wowed as well. Is that right? Yeah, definitely. Let me see, more eye contact dynamic. It said, did you show preparation? Absolutely. I can see you must have put a lot of time and effort into that. Would you all agree with that? Yeah. All I can say is I'm really looking forward to hearing more about your life and your ambitions, which I know are going to be fulfilled, and obviously your potential, which is going to be totally met. And good luck to you, and thank you.
Thanks for that evaluation. Which now brings us on to the final speech of the evening, which is Janina. This is actually the final speech in the Toastmasters Competent Communication Manual as well, so the last speech in the same manual. And again, Janine needs no introduction. She's done fantastic speeches here at Toastmasters, but to introduce her and to explain what they're looking for in this particular speech, can I please call up Tony to do his brief evaluation and also introduce Janine as well.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, President and guests. Wow! I'm so privileged to actually evaluate the big one. You know, it is quite difficult and as well as daunting when you start from 1 and to walk yourself up the way to 10. And the 10 brings you a close. And after that, actually, there are other many rooms or doors to be opened. However, to get to this place is quite huge. And Janine's responsibility, ladies and gentlemen, this evening, let me just give you a little brief about her. Before the very first day I met her, I fell in love. Don't tell your husband, please. She is an angel inside out. And listening to her speeches all the time have worked wonders in me. This is somebody you know true and true. That this is who she is, this is how you see her, and that is exactly how she is. Our responsibility this evening is to actually inspire the audience. And how do you inspire the audience? The ability to connect with the audience, to show your emotion, to really hit you with those words, to actually connect with you. The main purpose is to inspire you to do something, to try to convince you to do something. And how she's going to go about this, ladies and gentlemen, is what I'm going to actually give feedback on later in the evening. I want to give to you, ladies and gentlemen, with a wonderful round of applause, Janine. Thank you.
So, fellow Toastmasters and honoured guests, in 10 minutes, unless of course I fall over, and that has been known, in 10 minutes time, I will be what Toastmasters call a competent communicator. But is that right? I will be able to do speeches. This is my 10th. I know I can do speeches. What about the other end of the line? Now, let me just ask you a question. How many of you still have parents alive? Most of you. That's good. I'll tell you why later. My father knew a thing about communication. Sadly, he's no longer alive. But when he left school, he went to work as a telephone engineer. And at that time, telephone engineers were part of the post office, and the post office was part of the civil service. Now, the Second World War was coming, and the Ministry of Defence decided it wanted to build bunkers underneath Whitehall. And my father was transferred to the Ministry of Defence to put the communication system into the bunker. I don't know all that was involved, but it would have been telephones, switchboards, many, many cables. But the one thing I can tell you is that it would have been absolutely useless if that was all there was, because communication systems need to be connected. It had to be connected. I don't know what it was connected to. Maybe military headquarters, maybe the palace, maybe the White House. But without that communication, something at the end of the line, no amount of speaking by Winston Churchill or anyone else would have been any use at all. Speaking is one end, but there has to be listening. Imagine now, I'm at a station. The train's not quite due, so I get out my book. Suddenly,
The train to Sheffield, the 2015 train to Sheffield is now going to go from platform 10. Passengers for Mount Sorrel must use the rear 4 coaches.
Mount Sorrel, that's my station. And I rush up, and I rush up the steps, and I get to platform 10, but there's a 10A and there's a 10B. Now, did I want the rear or the front? And I get to the train, and I drop my book. I wasn't listening. Listening is a skill that's absolutely essential in life. For example, in relationships, Relate, the counselling service, will tell you that one of the greatest causes of marriage breakdown or relationship breakdown is a failure of communication. And it's not enough that people just speak to each other. They need to listen. But do we listen? Isn't it true that we sort of half listen? And that's we're thinking, I must forget to put the carrots on. Or I'm half listening to what my partner's saying to me, but at the same time I'm thinking what I'm going to say next. Or am I the only person who does that? Do we listen? The good news is that listening is something we can learn. It's a skill we can learn. And Toastmasters is a good place to do that, because we evaluate, and you cannot be a good evaluator unless you listen. I'm always astonished by the people who can listen to, say, 8 table topics, and they've heard every one of those little talks, and they remember what's said, and they have feedback on each of them. I think that's really clever. That's really good listening. So, you can learn the skill. And when you've learned the skill of listening, you can make a difference. Now, this evening, we've heard of some ways of making a difference, being kind, being careful not to aggravate. But I'm going to say that I think just as important is to listen. There are so many lonely people in this world who just need somebody to listen to them. There's a listening skills, a listening service in Salisbury. Somebody told me about a lady who came into their little place where they listen. And she said, "Do you just listen to bad stuff?" I said, "No, of course not. You can come." She said, "Well, my daughter's in Australia. She's just had a baby. It's my first grandchild. And I've nobody to tell." Isn't that sad? There's a need in our world for people to listen. Now, I said back at the beginning that my father is no longer alive. And very often I think to